Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode here on the Irish Wrestling Podcast. It is myself hosting this evening, Queen Lizzie. Lovely to see you all. And of course, himself, Booker G, bad time. And tis himself. Welcome back. Tis Mr. Colin Byrne, one of the stalwarts of the Irish wrestling fandom. So now, guys, we are delighted to be with you again here on Irish Wrestling Podcast. And pumped, excited, and I suppose honoured really to be joined today by what can only be described as wrestling royalty here in Ireland. Absolutely no jokes about it. If you will, a pillar of the Irish wrestling scene. Years of experience and a wealth of knowledge, and probably a very high standard of genuine soundness is what can be described to what can be used to describe today's guest, the one and only Katey Harvey. Katey, we are delighted to have you on board for this episode. How are things?
They're good, yeah. I mean, can you come and do intros for me every show now that I'm back wrestling?
Loads more.
I feel like people only say those things because I've literally just hung around long enough in Irish wrestling.
God, no, not at all. Do you know what? I think you're just a name that is associated with the Irish wrestling scene, be it in ring, be it promoting, be it just, as I said, levels of layers of experience and what you can contribute and continue to contribute. I think, you know, your name is just synonymous with it. So, like, realize it or not, you know, you have a big, massive kind of fan club with following. Speaking of that, the Irish wrestling scene at the moment, I mean, like, I'm a lifelong wrestling fan. You're a lifelong wrestling fan. I think we all kind of have been. But I don't know, is it just me? But it's just blazing at the moment. It's just on fire. You know, it's always been great, but just the last couple of years, it just seems to have upped a gear and it's just kind of gone off the chart altogether. This sounds like a very Jimmy Rabbit question. What does it all mean, Jimmy? Do you remember he sat in the bathtub? That's what it sounds like. But do you think the same, Katey, or do you think it's just kind of been bubbling all the time and all of a sudden it's just kind of boiled over? Or it's just a mad, exciting time to be a fan of Irish wrestling?
I definitely think we're back on the build-up. I've kind of been around long enough because even before I got involved in wrestling 12 years ago, I was going to the NWA Ireland shows when I was like 10, 11 years old. So I've kind of been like watching the scene since the very beginning. And there's always been ups and downs. It's just the nature of the business. Obviously, COVID was a massive down for everyone, but I do feel like a lot of people took that time to reevaluate themselves. And came back with like just a renewed passion because nobody expected to lose 2 years of their lives, you know. And when you're a young wrestler, like 2 years is massive, you know. I was kind of lucky that I kind of did everything I wanted before the pandemic, and so I didn't feel the same pressure that the young people are feeling coming back into it. But it's so good to see how it's just a fire. That's all it is, and it is just it's back on the bubble up. You're completely right. It's a very exciting time to be a fan.
Big time, and I think as well, you know, for a lot of people, it was like, aside from the physicality of it, because gyms were shut, you know, so like you're kind of trying to motivate yourself to do it, and there's only so much you can do, you know, without, you know, sparring, I suppose, in essence. And for a lot of people, it was their escape. So when that's taken away, I think, you know what, you kind of get your ducks back in a row and you're like, do you know what, this was actually what means so much to me and it was taken away from me. And I am, if I'm going to let it go away from me again. And just, as you say, just a renewed vigor and a renewed passion. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. And for the school that you run, like you've got so many students there, like every time you see, you know, posts on social media, there's always a big crew. You know, how important was it to, you know, have this school during the pandemic, you know, coming back and getting everybody back into the school and starting, you know, pretty much starting off over again, like getting everybody there.
Yeah, it's so funny for us because post-pandemic, we're probably doing the best we've ever done in the school. But we very nearly had to shut down during the pandemic, like a lot of businesses. Wrestling is this grey area in Ireland where you're not registered as a sports club, you're not registered as an arts club. It's so basically we didn't fit into any boxes to get any COVID help or COVID funding. So we basically paid our entire rent for 2 years, all of our rates, everything, just to keep the club going while we couldn't operate a business.
Wow.
And it was extremely tough. We had to call a meeting mid-pandemic and just kind of lay our cards out to everyone in the club and say, like, we we have to pay to keep the club open. We don't know when the restrictions are going to be lifted. We don't know, you know, when we can train again, but like, what do you guys want to do? And without fail, every single member of the club said, we'll just pay our subs. We'll just pay our weekly subs. It doesn't matter if we can't train, we'll pay them, because we want Fight Factory to be there on the other end of the pandemic. And honestly, I felt like crying when we had that Zoom call, because I knew Fight Factory meant a lot to a lot of people, but I didn't realize that it meant that much, that they were willing to keep it afloat while it felt a bit desperate to us at times. Because me and my partner Phil, we both work in the gym industry, so we were completely out of work during the pandemic, and I was pregnant on top of this. So it was kind of like, it did feel like it could have been the end, but it was only for our students that we managed to keep it going. And then when we reopened, we tweaked our business plan slightly. Instead of just letting beginners come down whenever they wanted, we started running beginners courses, and like proper structured 10-week courses. So my background outside of wrestling is I was a karate instructor for years. So we're that's my baby. I explained before we logged on. She's here now. So I started writing almost like a syllabus for wrestling. So we have these really structured 10-week courses now, and we've actually run 5 of them since we reopened after the pandemic, which is an incredible amount of students who have walked through the door. And we also formed really strong links with Titanic up in Belfast and Phoenix down in Cork, which obviously unfortunately folded, but it looks like there's rumblings of something springing up there with RCW. So basically we formed really strong links with them. So we created the next gen shows, which are our trainee shows. And the idea behind that would be that Titanic would send some of their people who are just, you know, on that level where they're trying to break onto shows, they're just bubbling. And then Cork would do the same. And we would give like these like big day-long seminars where everyone got a chance to meet each other, work together, and then we would put on a show. And we've ran 4 of them since the pandemic as well, which has been absolutely incredible. The last one that we ran, we had 61 people training from Cork, Belfast, and Dublin. And it's just, the buzz of those days is absolutely incredible. There was nothing like that when I started wrestling, you know, like it's the connections people are able to make and the help they're able to give each other, is again why I think the scene is bubbling so much. Just this kind of structure that we've been able to put in place because of the pandemic is incredible, and it's just really taken Fight Factory to the next level.
And you mentioned Cork, you know, with previously Phoenix, RCW, and Titanic. How important is it, you know, for the 3 companies like that to work together? You know, when you're putting on shows, like, you know, making, you know, for, you know, getting talent onto your shows or their shows, you know.
It's absolutely vital. And the best advice I was given for wrestling, so I go off on tangents, I'm sorry. Fight Factory comes from the ashes of NWA Ireland, which obviously Finn Balor had a massive, like he was the founder. So he basically doesn't forget where he comes from and often calls back to the schools when he's home, and chats to the younger wrestlers. And I remember one of the times he came home, I think it was when he was full-time in New Japan, and he came home and just showed up to a random Wednesday training session, just joined in. And he was giving us some advice at the end, and his advice was train everywhere, go everywhere, talk to everyone you can. Basically, anyone who gets stuck in a bubble will never get out of that bubble. So that's why it's so vital to be able to just make connections with everyone. So if we can facilitate that by working with Titanic and Cork and lots of other places, you know, we have very strong links with a school in Belgium called FWF, and just different places we work, we have these strong links formed where we can kind of not like trade people, but you know, if someone wants to go wrestle in Belgium, I'm like, I have someone I can put you in contact with. You know, if someone wants to wrestle in the UK, chances are someone in the Fight Factory coaches group has been there and knows someone, and so we can kind of help people that way. But it's just from experience as well, because one of the main places I got booked when I started out was in PWU, which was in Belfast, which is kind of what Titanic has come from. Fight Factory just wasn't really running shows. There wasn't that many shows in Ireland, but they were running regularly. And in my first 2 years working with them, I got to wrestle Nikki Cross. I got to wrestle Tony Storm. I got to wrestle Kaylee Ray. I got to wrestle all these incredible women. There was talk of me wrestling China at one stage. Wow. And again, that wouldn't have happened unless we had that great relationship up there, you know. So you'll often see the likes of JDP on air shows, you know, just because we have that strong friendship now going back like Jesus, like 10, 12 years now. So it is absolutely vital for everyone to just get around and train where they can.
Massive.
For sure.
And
Wow.
just lastly, I'll let you go on to Colin after, but the seminars you mentioned about, having that connection with, companies in Belgium. That's one of the big things for your seminars. I know Debbie Katey had one recently where she was, teaching people or, advising them on how to get booked overseas, what to do with, even building up their CVs and getting their name out there. Like, how important is it, when you get people over, like, I know you had Jonathan Gresham over seminars, bringing in these big names and to do seminars for you. Like, how important is that for them?
It's so important because, again, like there's very few like black and white situations in wrestling training. You will learn how to do a sequence 4 different ways off 4 different people. Everyone will have a slightly different opinion on how that should be done. So my advice is always listen to everyone and find out what applies to you. Make an educated decision what to pull from every seminar that you do. So we do make a conscious effort to bring over people. And again, it's about connections. So the reason why we have Jonathan Gresham, we've had him 5 times for seminars over the last 15 years. Because when Phil was in Japan wrestling, that's where he met Jonathan Gresham. They trained together, and now that connection has Jonathan Gresham coming over to us.
Wow.
With the FWF in Belgium, myself and Phil have been working there for years now. And recently they brought over 4 Fight Factory coaches, myself, Justy, Debbie Keitel, and Phil, to do a full 3-day Fight Factory seminar. Basically just like show them how you train. And it was amazing to have that kind of recognition that there is, a Fight Factory style is beginning to emerge. Because we train coaches, not just wrestlers. So you'll see LJ Cleary now coaching in what feels like every wrestling school in Europe. Because that's someone who we kind of brought along with coaching. Like Michael May was another one, was coaching quite a bit. And you'll see like people like Fabio now, he taught a seminar in France a few weeks ago. So it's just another really good skill that you can layer onto wrestlers to help them increase their own value as they go out,
Yeah.
And then with the Debbie Keitel and the social media stuff, again, it's just us trying to make people more well-rounded and give them as many helping hands as we can to, like, sounds really cheesy, send them out into the world,
Yeah, to protect them, yeah.
Yeah, so she's actually ran that seminar in I think 4 different countries now, which is incredible. And next year we're going to focus on bringing that kind of training more regularly to Fight Factory as well. So we'll focus on CVs, branding, character development, improv, that sort of stuff. Again, just because wrestling is so varied. Like we can teach you how to do a wrist lock, but I can't teach you to have the personality to get booked, but we can give you these different tools to try, and we can help you along the way. So hopefully that's what we're offering with the school, is just a really well-rounded experience to give people the best start they can in pro wrestling.
Something that definitely seems to come up a lot, sorry Jerry, is that like anyone can learn how to wrestle, anyone can learn how to do a move here, there, or anywhere, but it's the, what would you call it, the stuff that you can't put on paper, that like extra little bit, the character, the selling, the feeding, the nuances in wrestling, the investment that the people get in going to a show. Me as a fan, like I want to be invested in a match, I want to like someone, I want to hate someone, and it's that kind of thing to get over. And it, like, you're echoing kind of a lot of what we're hearing from like other schools around the country as well, that like there's so much focus on not just the moves, but the other extenuating circumstances that like make us love wrestling, essentially. Like,
this is going to sound really weird, but for me personally, training, getting injured could have been one of the best things that ever happened to me, right? Like, not from a life point of view, it was awful, but from an actual wrestling point of view, and because it was such a serious injury and I was determined to come back wrestling, I had to rethink everything I do, and I had to find like a fresh way to wrestle, and I had to think about the in-between things more than the moves, because I had to cut a lot of moves out of my repertoire, a lot of stuff I used to do I just don't feel comfortable doing anymore, or I have to find a workaround. But I think it's made me a smarter wrestler, and I've honestly never had as much fun training in the last 12 years than I have in the last year, which is a positive I did not foresee coming out of this. But I'm really glad it's happened.
So we're just to lead into the show next Friday on the 25th. House of the Wrestling. And who actually come up with the logo, the House of the Dragon? Whose idea was that?
So basically, I use these posters as a way to just nerd out. So I send Lee Simon, he is on Twitter, absolutely excellent graphic designer. We use him for everything. If you need anything done, go to him. I send him like the germ of an idea, and he just goes, got it, and runs with it. So like everything you see is basically something I am currently watching.
I love it. I mean,
Colin, do you want to lead into the match card so far? The matches announced.
Yeah, there's not an awful lot announced. We did have an announcement today. Was it today or yesterday? Sorry, I'm losing track. There's so much wrestling happening. I lose track of when things are announced. Like, but the number one contenders scramble match. Very intriguing concept.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I think we saw a scramble like this. What was the idea behind having this match coming into? Are you looking for new challengers for Fabio, or are you just trying to give people shots, or like where did the idea come from?
Well, we just kind of thought that kind of match would stand out in the landscape of Irish wrestling at the moment. It's a very old WWE match. The time scramble, so two people start, and then every 5 minutes someone else enters, and we don't know how many pinfalls there's going to be, but it's whoever holds that last pinfall as the countdown drops is going to get a cash-in shot. And it is basically just because Fabio is such a dominant champion, and we have such a talented roster, just to give more people chances to kind of step up and prove why they should be the next one to go after him. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting match. There's some really big personalities in it. So I think it's given like 5 really exciting people a good shot on the show.
100%. I think we also saw Fabio announcing an open challenge. I think that one was today. Am I right in saying that
was today?
Yeah.
That was today.
Yeah, so an open challenge to someone who hasn't fought for the Irish Junior Heavyweight Championship before. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, you're correct. Again, just because we have such like a talented depth in our roster, while we wait for a number one contender to emerge, just to give like a wild card a shot. I love a wild card. Like that's why Grapple Games is our big event every single year. I love a wild card. I love just an exciting match where you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know, like literally dark horse can come from the back. That's my kind of wrestling. So,
and I think we saw from the next gen showcases that you've been running. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten to a next gen show, but I've definitely seen the showcases at the Fight Factory shows. I think you even said today on Twitter there's an abundance of talent, and I think you could easily pick 5 that would have a banger. Do you want to name anybody? Can I put you on the spot?
Right. What we'll do is I'll say who has challenged for the title, and we can process some elimination, because I don't want to get myself in trouble.
No, says.
So everyone from Grapple Games is out. So that's LJ, Klong, Debbie, Dom, and Martin. JB is out because he's wrestling Cheeseburger. Who else has challenged for it recently? So he's had a lot of outside challengers, like Justy hasn't challenged for it.
No, sorry, Justin.
Justin has. Justin was last show. We had Terry Thatcher. We had Jonathan Gresham. You know, like there's still quite a few on the roster that are open. Like you do have Justy, Phil. You have the tag teams. You have all the saviors. You have other people on the roster. You've got like your CBLs, your Big Rabs. You've got your next gen people. You've got your Reardon O'Connors. You've got, you know, some of the Northern Irish people we use. You've got the Bearded Beauties. Like there's still quite a lot there who could step up and challenge.
You're definitely giving us a lot of food for thought there. And anyway, like,
and here's me just saying, I hope I don't leave anyone out in her feelings.
Like a gauntlet match there.
I think the only other match that was being announced now was JB and Cheeseburger.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? You seem to be getting some big names, Katey, over. Like you have Erick Redbeard coming at the end of the year. You've had Gresham, Carnoir. Like Cheeseburger, another massive name that you have coming over. Is this to do with the relationships that you already spoke about? Do you have a previous relationship with him or with someone that he's worked for in order to bring him in?
A lot of time we would have previous relationships. So with Cheeseburger, obviously Ring of Honor. So Jonathan Gresham is the kind of connection there. The great thing is the people who wrestle for us seem to love wrestling for us, and then they go tell someone else. So then when I contact them or they contact me, there's excitement on both sides. Like we recently had like Nina Samuels. That's someone who I personally wrestled a lot over the years. So she was a great person to contact. So generally we do have some kind of personal connection with them. Like maybe one of the coaches has wrestled them, or they've been over for seminars. Or if someone can give us a great seminar and we can book them for a show, that's always a really good combination as well. So like Martin Kirby, for example, is an incredible trainer and is great on a show. So that's kind of a no-brainer to bring someone like him over.
Yeah, he's given us a couple of matches as well. Is there anything else that you have in the works? Is there anything that you can give us for the show?
There is 3 more match announcements coming out this week. We'll have to wait for the promos to drop, but there is 3 more matches coming.
Really enthused about that.
I will say this show does clash with the toy show, which is why I tell you it'll be the only Irish wrestling show in history to finish on time, because I have a 1-year-old I want to watch the toy show with.
Yes. Institution.
Is there going to be one drink for everybody in the audience at the show?
I mean, I think it would only be fair to have something for everybody in the audience, so we'll see what we can do.
Get your tickets quick. Get your tickets. Just one other thing that I want to actually talk to you about, Katey, that myself and yourself actually spoke about at the last show. You're trying a few different things with Fight Factory. One of the things that I love about it this year, the new venue, the feel to it, the vibe to it. It's very undergroundy, very raw and gritty, and I love it. It's different to any other wrestling show that you'll go to in this country, and that's the reason why I love it. Is that something that you consciously thought about then coming out of COVID to change it up, run it in the home training center? And like what kind of went into the thought around like moving from Sheriff Street or the Big Sean into your own training center to run the shows?
It was kind of a needs must situation. So originally our training school was only where we have our dressing room and backstage area. And then during COVID, the person that we split the building with, unfortunately, had to go home. So we took the opportunity to take over the whole building and said, let's try build a studio space here. Again, we didn't know how long COVID was going to go. So originally we were going to film like episodes of a TV show to release. And then the restrictions started getting lifted and we thought, well, let's just do live shows, And the other reason for that is a lot of the venues we were using before, like Sheriff Street and the Big Sean, used COVID as an excuse to not bring back a lot of crowded events. Or that's the reasoning we were given anyway, which is disappointing because a lot of them are community centres. And this, I feel, is a benefit to the community. So it's kind of a needs must that way. It's extremely hard to find venues in Dublin. Most wrestling fans are aware of this. It's almost impossible. Either it's sky high rental rates or it's impossible hoops to jump through, or people just don't want wrestling because they lump it in with like MMA and boxing. And like previously there could have been issues with events, which isn't exactly fair. So with all this under consideration, we were just like, well, let's just see if we can create something cool here. And again, I'm really glad that you think it's like kind of cool underground vibe, because that's what we were going for. Like, I don't know if you've ever went to the Resistance Gallery in London. Couple of promotions used to run out of there. It had a very similar kind of feeling. More like you're in a pub with your mates watching a show rather than, at a big setup kind of event.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is consciously something that we're striving for. We are trying new things, like we tried chairs at the last show. We'll bring the standing section back for this just because of feedback I got. We want to be a very interactive promotion. We want to listen to people because at the end of the day, you are the ones watching the shows, so we want to listen and like adapt as much as we can to what people actually want from pro wrestling in Ireland these days.
Yeah, and I can safely say that like you're given, from like the consensus that I've gotten from people at the shows as well, like you're giving us exactly what we want. You're giving us that outlet. Friday night is a great night to have shows. Bring your own beer, have a few drinks, have a laugh with your mates, watch great wrestling in the ring, and a very affordable price. Like the value is ridiculous. It really is ridiculous value. Very central location as well. I'm loving it. I have been loving all the shows. Long may they continue. I don't want just to move the venue, but you understand that bigger shows might need a move, potentially. But yeah, do you have any plans in the future, Katey? I know you were talking about maybe going to a different venue for the December show, or rumors had it, but like, is there a reason why that hasn't materialized?
Well, originally we were going to move that show just to make it kind of bigger, and I wanted to make it all ages, just because I feel like a lot of under 18s would appreciate seeing Erick Redbeard. But again, couldn't find a venue. You know, just and then on the flip side, we do have such a good vibe at air shows. Did we want to mess with that for what is potentially our biggest show of the year? You know, would people prefer maybe paying the because this show, I'll be upfront, is an extra €5 than what we normally charge. But will people appreciate paying that extra €5 and seeing someone like Eric Rowan in that close capacity? You know, is a good trade-off, the experience. That's why we decided to keep it where we were in Fight Factory as well. I did look at other venues, couldn't really find one that suited the vibe I wanted, so we've just gone with Fight Factory, and just for this show only, the tickets will be back down to 20 after this show. This show only, we just put that little price raise just to compensate having it in the smaller venue.
It seems to work anyway, because like there's a lot of people from Cork traveling up for that show because
really?
Because of Erick Redbeard, like, but they're obviously going up to see their first Fight Factory show. It's something like we are hoping to go to, but we're due to fly back from New York a day beforehand, so we don't know if we'll be able to travel up yet. We're still hoping to. Like, there is still tickets available though, is there?
Still tickets available. Now they are for both shows kind of flying out, so I don't know if we'll have as many available on the door as we usually do, but I'll put alerts online if it looks like, because obviously with a smaller venue we do have to be very wary of capacity. So I will put alerts on, but I would encourage people to buy in advance if they do want to come, just to kind of ensure that, you know, because I just can't guarantee door tickets.
And they get
just as well, Kate, you always say that you said that you were bringing back the standing areas as well, just like to just make it clear to people. You always say, if you want a seat, you can have a seat. Just ask. There's plenty of seats there,
there's always about 15 seats out. I can put out more, because I know some people have kind of contacted me saying like, oh, well, you know, I'd prefer a seat. We do have one row of seating against one wall, because we do try to accommodate everyone. So if you do need a seat, or you have any sort of accessibility needs, like the place is completely wheelchair friendly. The toilet is on the bottom level as well, because I know some people have asked me questions like that before. Just message me. I'm generally fairly responsive on any kind of issues like that for people coming to the shows. I just want more people to watch wrestling. That's just my end game.
Absolutely. And you know what, that's apparent. And the fact that laid back isn't it, for lack of a better word, but the fact that you're so not laid back, accommodating more than anything, because it's such, as you say, it's such an interactive experience, you know, and in a world that's so, I suppose now everything is mobile, everything is tech, but like wrestling is always so interactive, regardless of your online presence and social media. It is, and it's that vibe between, you know, what's happening in the ring and between the fans, and the buzz for this show is just phenomenal. So we wish you the absolute best of luck with it, and of course for December too as well, because it's just lining up to be a nice, I suppose, ribbon on top of the package that 2020. Hey, the very small package. Well, hey, there we go. There it is. That just came to me there. I'm telling you, mate, no flies on this style. Of what has been a really, really great 2022, and setting up a fab 2023 as well. Katey, thank you so much for your time. We really, really appreciate it. It's been lovely chatting with you and getting a little bit more of an inside scoop on Fight Factory Pro Wrestling. And we'll definitely be having her back on again for sure. So for those of you watching, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have not found Irish Wrestling Entertainment or Fight Factory Pro Wrestling, what are you doing? Get on it. like, subscribe, and comment. Find us, interact with Fight Factory Pro Wrestling for all of your Irish wrestling needs. Also on Instagram and Facebook at Irish Wrestling 8. Come and join all the millions of views on TikTok at Irish Wrestling 8 as well. And from myself being Queen Lizzie, from himself being Booker G, from the lad in the corner, Colin, the representative of the Irish fan base for wrestling, and of course, the one and only Queen herself, Katey Harvey. Thank you for joining us, and we'll chat to you all soon. Bye, guys.